Welcome back, folks. So I noticed on one of my older videos when I first got these Scale Trains locomotives, I had them for maybe about a month, if even that. And afterwards I started running the Genesis models with them. And somebody had asked me, how did I get both Scale Trains and Genesis models, Athearn Genesis, to run in harmony together, basically. And I will admit it's not the easiest thing to learn, but once you figure it out, you start to say, like, okay, it's easier than you think. And for somebody that's like me that doesn't know much about electrical stuff, it was honestly very easy. And that's one of the things that I'm gonna have to learn here in the coming months, really. So the main thing that I wanted to do was with these Scale Trains out of the box, they're nice sounding engines, but when you're in here in a garage and you got big consists such as this, that's 3 locomotives and sometimes even 4, it gets to be a bit loud. It can be a bit too much. So the main thing that I wanted to learn was the master volumes. Disclaimer, I forgot to write down the master volume from Genesis or for Tsunami Sounds. However, with the ESU, I figured out that CV63, that is the ESU master volume, CV63, and I put it at a value of 85. That to me was perfect. Not too loud and not too soft. I still like to be able to hear the engines and everything, but I didn't want it to be deafening in here because in this garage, sound bounces off. It bounces around everywhere. So I put it at that. Next thing was, well, obviously, I bought these locomotives to run together. And out of the box, they do not like each other. They despise each other out of the box. So one of the things that I had to learn with Scale Trains is, if any of you know, and the ones that do know this, Scale Trains, as soon as you throw up the throttle to even just speed step 1, the locomotives sit there for maybe a half second, if even that. And then they start moving. Whereas the Genesis, you throw it up to speed step 1, automatically they start moving. So one of the things that I had to learn, that I asked somebody on Facebook, was how to get rid of that speed step delay, that first initial speed step. And they told me CV 124 to a value of 16. And that's automatic default with any ESU, as far as I'm aware, to get rid of that start voltage delay. So I said, sweet, we're getting somewhere. However, they're still not perfectly matched. They start out at the same point, but they're still not perfectly matched. So the next thing I had to learn was speed matching. And somebody told me 3 basic CVs that you have to learn, no matter what. CV2, 5, and 6. CV2 is the start voltage. CV5 is, I believe, the high end voltage or the max voltage, like how fast you want these to go at top speed. And then CV6 is the mid range, if I'm not mistaken. And the way that somebody told me, you have to go 2, 6, 5. And I could be mistaken on these two. It could be flipped as far as like what they are. You can learn it online. And I eventually had to sit here, have one of the Scale Trains engines run around and one Genesis model running together. And no cars, nothing. No train behind them, nothing. Just let them run freely. And it takes some time. It took me about an hour, maybe even an hour and a half. It's been a couple of months since I've done this. And once you get it done, best thing to do is write down every single thing that you learned from doing this. Ignore the 63 down there, as I told you. I put mine at 85 now. It takes some time, but once you start learning this, you start to understand, okay, this is getting a little easier. And once you start doing it on multiple engines, you start to be like, okay, I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that. So for me, when doing all this, I had to put CV2 of a value of 3 on the Scale Trains. It's CV2 at a value of 1 on the Genesis. CV5 to a value of 100 on Scale Trains and 80 on the Genesis. And CV6 to a value of 105 on Scale Trains and 82 on the Genesis models. And that to me is about as close as darn possible as you can get it. Now, if you got JMRI in a computer and ESU load programmer and all that, you could probably get these a lot better. But if you're somebody like me, doesn't have a computer, is just doing it on the Digitrax DT402 that I got here in the Zephyr DCS51, or is it D52, one of those two, I can't remember. I think it's a 51. It just takes some time. It just take your time, don't rush it, and just sit here and learn who's going faster, who's going slower at different intervals. And eventually you start to get them to where they're about as pretty darn close as you can get it. And don't worry if you cannot get them very close. If you look at the real world, they are not close to each other at all. The one locomotive may be running a half step faster than the lead locomotive sometimes. At least that's just what I've seen. So take your time learning these things, and as you can see, the reward is very awesome. So until then, folks, we will catch y'all later. If you have any questions, please ask. There's quite a few people out there that know these different decoders better than I do. If you got a question about Soundtrax, or Soundtrax is out there, they can help you. And Jason, the Train Freak, he's a big ESU, or not ESU, but he's a big Soundtrax guy. He's a distributor of Soundtrax, so he can help you with Soundtrax. And there's quite a few guys out there that love ESU. So, and they can help you out understanding what to do with their models. To me, as long as the engine sounds good, as long as the engine is running good, I don't care if it's ESU, I don't care if it's Tsunami. I've not yet tried TCS, so I don't know nothing about them, but as long as the models run good, sound good, I'm happy. And you can get a perfectly running train, just like mine, to where two different manufacturers basically live in harmony with each other. So take your time, learn it, and you will have fun with your locomotives just like I am. With the locomotive 6911, as most of you know, I just got back from Scale Trains. They replaced the motor and finally got it running, and now it's running perfectly beautiful. Man, I gotta admit, that's a good looking train. So hopefully here in the coming months I can pick up, maybe, I noticed the Scale Trains brought out some more GP30s, but they're in the Chessie paint. I don't think I'll get any of them. Nothing wrong with the GP30s or Scale Trains. I want more B&O and C&O in that blue color, if I can find any eventually. But the main thing is I want to start learning track laying and wiring. So that's going to be the fun thing next. But when it comes to this speed matching, don't stress yourself out. I know us new guys, we get, especially us younger fellas, we get looked at as, well, you should know it, you should know what you're doing. No, sometimes we don't always know what we're doing. And in my case, I don't have a computer, so I can't sit here and just click, 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 done. I have to do everything on the throttle. So take your time, learn it, enjoy it, and eventually you'll have, like I said, a nice running locomotive, just like I got. So until then, folks, enjoy the hobby and have fun. If you got any questions, hit me up. There's quite a few people out there that can tell you about ESU and Tsunami or soundtracks. So until then, happy modeling.